What's going on, everyone? This is Seth, one of the co-hosts of Engage Podcast, to bring you today another great episode of Engage Podcast. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. But before I get into that, I have to give you my world-famous announcements. First of all, if you haven't done this already, go ahead and subscribe to wherever you're hearing my voice right now. So if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, YouTube, wherever, that way, if you hit the subscribe button every Thursday when we come out with a new episode, it's going to be directly downloaded onto your phone. You won't have to look for us. You won't have to search for us. It's going to be right there on your phone. It's simple and it's easy. Also, if you haven't done this yet, go ahead and check out our YouTube page. The link for that's down in the show notes. There you can find all kinds of amazing content waiting for you. We have book review videos. We have leadership videos. We have our live stream services every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. We have currently we're going through a series called For the Love of God, where me and Pastor Anthony sit down and we watch and react and review songs by the band U2, and eventually we're going to get to other artists. But it's been a crazy ride so far, and I've loved every minute of it. And it's just one of those things that, you know, it's become a part of my weekly routine with Pastor Anthony, sitting down and watching and listening to and reacting to U2 songs. So it's been great. So all that's there for you. Like I said, the link for that's down in the show notes. And also, if you wanted to see the guests today, if you wanted to, feel like you're sitting at the table with us, then YouTube is where you want to go. There's a visual version of the podcast there, whereas this is just audio. But it's fantastic. I really, really, really love just that the extra level of experience that we offer. Our guest today is a great individual, just great, overall great guy. Love talking to him. It was very heartwarming, soul-filling. His name is David Basnak. I hope I said his last name right, Basnak. David Basnak is... him and Pastor Anthony go back a couple of years, and he shares a story about just the deep level of impact that God had on David through Pastor Anthony. And it's an amazing story. But David has, we talk about all kinds of amazing things. He is a EMT, and we talk a lot about that. He's very devout in his faith, and as you probably remember from, we listened to the episode with Mike Kobe, who was also a EMT for many years. He talked about how his work was always challenging his faith, and it was always something that he struggled with. And David talks about that. We also talk about his amazing transformation through his weight loss journey, something that I personally I was very much inspired by. So David was fantastic. You guys are in for a great episode of Engage Podcast. I love when we do podcasts like this, where it's not just just informative, it's also very inspiring. So give it up for our friend David Basnak.
Welcome you back to Engaged Podcast. We got Seth and I in the studio on this beautiful day outside in Western Pennsylvania. We like when we have those, don't we?
It's rare.
It's a rarity.
Absolutely.
Today we have the privilege of sitting with David Basnak. And David works at Emergicare. I like how is that your shirt you have on there too?
Yes. One of my many polo shirts and everything that kind of brands everything out.
Yeah, I like that.
It's the free advertising thing too. I like that.
You may get you might get a promotion after this.
That's why you did it. Is you want to, yeah.
See, you guys got me figured out, and it's we're only like 2 minutes into this,
So David, tell everyone how our paths crossed.
So I want to say it was 2017, and I don't know that you know a good part of this story, Pastor Anthony, but we had seen a sign in the front yard of your church for the marriage classes, the program that you were putting on at the church with your congregation. And so, believe it or not, that was sort of a rough time in my life and my wife's life, and to where we were actually having some, marital issues. And believe it or not, we were kind of in the midst of an argument at the time when we were going up Route 18, and we were driving by the church, and there was that sign in the front yard of the church for marriage classes. And so we actually both took pause for a moment when we seen that, and immediately took that as a sign that, like, and especially, when I pray and I ask for guidance, from God, and, I'm really looking at my faith and stuff to, for answers, I'm like, you have to really tell me exactly what you want, Lord, because I don't know. I'm a black and white person sometimes. Like, sometimes I don't know what direction to go. And so when he puts a sign like that right in front of you and makes it that blatant, marriage classes, that you're supposed to do that. And like, the timing could not have been better at the time, because that was certainly a very trying time for our little family. And it actually helped put us on the path to making our relationship very healthy, and, us both being able to prosper, and the rest has been history. It's been great, and, we've worked through so much. But so, as ironic as it sounds, and I don't know that I ever shared that story with you, Pastor Anthony, but that's what led to the phone call that day. And that is one of the biggest blessings that I've ever had in my life, in our family's life. So,
wow.
That's a nice.
So yeah, so if that puts you back in the seat a little bit, bam, you didn't really expect to hear that.
No, that's we would call that God's providence, right?
That's right. That's right. And I think about that all the time, because like I said, when times are tough, I'm very much I'd like a black and white answer. And that day was certainly a very big black and white answer. It was right. It literally, here's your sign. Well, literally, here was a sign. So, yeah. And that's what led us. That's what led us to meet you and get hooked up with the church there a little bit. And of course, shortly after that's when we moved up to Erie. So we really wish we could replicate you or recruit you to Erie.
Don't let the church.
Yeah, I know. I don't want anybody to chase me off because of that, but no, it was certainly a blessing. And the other folks in your congregation that we met and kind of networked with there in class and stuff, that was a huge blessing to both my wife and I and our family. So,
well, that's excellent. I'll make sure the elders, listen to this so they can see, because sometimes it doesn't go full circle.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a lot of times it might go full circle, but what comes full circle is negativity.
Yep. Yep. And that's, and honestly, that's like, even in my career path, like, I can appreciate that. Like, there are things and calls and stuff, and I know we'll talk more about that a little later, that, it was nothing to me at the time. It was just what I do and how I do it, and that, and you find out sometimes, weeks, months later, how that impacted somebody else. And, in this instance, you really didn't know the impact that you had till years later here. But yeah, it's funny how things come like that full circle. And, that's kind of like one of the great mysteries of life, that you find out later on that, things circle back and you get that reinforcement. So
I wonder if heaven's going to be like that, where, God is going to say, hey, remember that day you were really frustrated and you forgot your glasses at home? Well, let me show you what would have happened if I didn't make you forget your glasses.
Mm-hmm.
You were going to be in a wreck, right down the road or something.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, there's been lots of instances to where I've just, even myself and my own, growth and development, or where I've just wondered if something's timed out the way it did, just because, I've seen firsthand, so many instances to where it's just bad timing, just totally innocent things and bad things happen just perfectly because of timing. Wrong place, wrong time.
I agree with that.
Well, I was going to say even further is that, there's plenty of times where through church, my dad's a pastor as well. So I was raised in the church my whole life. And, people come and go in and out of your congregation, whether they move or they attend a different church, whatever. And then one of the things I always think about is when we get to heaven, we bump into those people and then find out that, especially with those who were not necessarily believers, how much of an impact we had, even in those tiny little interactions we had with them. Like I think about when you're at work and your coworker, just how, just giving them a nice encouraging word or something like that.
Yep.
And then, a lifetime later, you're in heaven and you find out that worker came to know Christ and you were a part of that path, or you were part of that journey. I think that would be an extremely emotional, overwhelming thing to realize.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Wow.
Because we seem to always get so hung up on that it has to be a big thing. Like something you do for somebody has to be a big thing to really matter. It's really not that. Most of the time, the most impactful things we have on anybody's lives are the little things that we do for each other, just as human beings. And people,
sorry,
I think no, go ahead.
No, there's a delay. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Oh, gotcha. It's just, it's those little things that just add up and really just, really define, I think, people's lives. It's just those little moments, those little things in life that sometimes just carry us through the day, So
I just preached a sermon on graduation Sunday a few weeks ago, and I used the illustration of putting marbles in a jar. And, everyone thinks it's the huge things, but it's the tiny marbles that go in. It's, you decided to smile at someone instead of frown at them. You open the door for somebody. You send an encouraging note. And all those are little marbles, of how you're known. And then the opposite of that is true as well. You're grumpy, you're negative, take marbles out. You're slamming doors on people's faces, like I did to Seth earlier today. Nobody saw it though, so I'm just kidding. But but it's a cool illustration because people don't think that way.
Right.
Tell me a little bit more about your faith. Were you raised in the church?
Yeah, so I was raised in a church. I grew up with a very strong Christian family. On both sides. My mother and my father's side. So. I've always appreciated, my faith has always been part of my life. I've, had the opportunities where obviously as I've matured and strengthened my faith to really understand what that means and what it is that, to have the Lord in your heart and stuff. I never had that necessarily that aha moment to where, I came to, to belief in that, because I just always have been around it. But, yeah, I grew up in a church. I was very fortunate that, it was very safe, very loving environments and stuff like that. And I think that's what's driven me to do some of what I do today is, I want to be that rock for other people in different ways, So, yeah, that's I kind of had a dull childhood growing up, so nothing too awful exciting, but but yeah, lots of good memories growing up in a church and, with church family and friends and stuff.
Did you go to church locally here?
Yes. So I grew up in a little church called State Line Church in Jamestown, Pennsylvania. And literally it's out in the middle of nowhere, almost to the Ohio line. In fact, I think you can throw a rock from the Ohio line. That's primarily where I grew up. And I also, when I got older, we attended Crossroads Christian Fellowship, which is out Route 358 outside of Greenville there. And so more like my adolescent and teenage years, and up through graduation of high school, that's where I went.
Mhm.
You said you want to be a rock for people. What does that mean?
So, being there for people in their time of need. And so what, and what is that exactly? Like that could mean anything. And I never really understood that probably as much until I became like a paramedic. And I realized that not every emergency we deal with is like a life and death emergency. And, that's where I really found where some of the most impactful things you do, you don't physically do anything at all. Sometimes it's just listening to somebody or talking to somebody. But I really found that solace in that I wanted to help people, when I was younger. And I started an EMT class when I was in high school. And I was running with one of the volunteer fire departments. And that's what kind of got me into my EMS career. But I just kind of like that whole helping people, one way or another, and at the time, it seemed like, boy, it'd be really cool to save people's lives. Like that just sounds really cool. And everybody gets really excited when you think about that. But as I grew and matured, I found out that, it's not all that. Like there's just so much more you can do for people. And that's kind of really paved the way for, how I am today. I guess it's just kind of maturing through that thought process, so, and just having people and having people be a rock in my life, my family, my parents, my sister, and now my wife, as later years as I got married, like having that is, having people like that in your life is key, and so if I can do that for somebody else, then, who's lacking that, then, I'm crazy for not wanting to do that, because that's what I believe we're supposed to do.
What is it about your wife and who else did he mention? Your mom and dad?
Mm-hmm.
My parents and my sister. Yeah.
What are the qualities that they have that you admire?
It's, they're not judgmental. They just accept you for who you are and they support you no matter what. I go back to like my EMS career. Like I'm first generation that, a lot of people are like second, third generation, like in emergency services. But the day I came home with this crazy idea that, I wanted to join the fire department and go to EMT class and deal with all of these like crisis, they had to think I was crazy, at the time. And that's not really anything that they were ever exposed to, but they supported me through it. And any crazy venture, that I came up with that I wanted to do that seemed different, or that, they weren't familiar with, they supported me. And even in times of need, and, just, whether it's emotional need or physical need growing up, they were always there. And that's what, it breaks my heart to know that there's people out there now that don't have that. And just even as recently, just the last couple of years here, my wife and I started to we're foster parents. And so that need there kind of molded us to go that direction. And it's like, it's very satisfying to be, that you're helping provide that to somebody else, a child, in this instance, but just that whole, just kind of making you whole, having those people there that love you and accept you no matter what, no matter what crazy idea you come home with or, who you are, it's, they're there for you,
I think it's so cool. This past Sunday, I just preached a sermon on Psalm 128. And one of the things I talked about on that sermon was how the Bible talks about faith is, it's not just things you do, it's how you live because of the things like the things you read in the Bible. Your faith is expressed in how you live. One of the things I think is really cool and how you're talking about who you are, your passions, your loves, is that, you can tell, at least I can, just having just met you, that your faith is close to your heart because your whole being is about serving and helping and caring others. To me, that's just a reflection of the fact that you're close to a savior who was in fact like that, who did serve, who, always helped people. So I think it's a testament, not to just the people who raised you and invested into you, but also it's a testament to your faith. It's a testament to, what you take away from your, your Bible reading, your church attendance, all that kind of stuff. So I think that is absolutely amazing. And I'm sure everyone around you has been exceedingly blessed because of that.
Well, I'd hope so. Some of them might disagree. Yeah, I drive them crazy, I'm sure, to a certain degree. But yeah, no, that's I'd say that's a very, very accurate statement. Because faith is the foundation of what we do. In our being and why we do what we do, and it's and then we take our talents to help spread our faith, and help to show other people what that is and what that means to us. And there's just many different ways we can express that to others.
You mentioned the word crisis earlier, like helping people when they're in a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Some people naturally run towards a crisis, like to help. They're attracted to it, like you and police officers. There's just something in them that runs to that. And some people flee. They don't want anything to do with that. Are you the kind of guy that, clearly you're the kind of person that runs to the crisis?
I don't run, I walk. But yes. Yeah, it's one of those, and it's very difficult to explain. And I'm sure there's an entire book on psychology that explains why some of us are the way we are. But yeah, some of us are just attracted to, and it's not, I guess not the term attracted probably isn't accurate, but that's what we know how to do, so, going towards, say a car accident, where there's 3 cars all mangled up and, metal and stuff and people hurt, to me, that's not a big deal for me to handle. Now, if my water heater breaks down in my house, like that now hits crisis mode in my mind, so like somebody who can come and fix that, or somebody who can fix my car, because I am not a vehicle repairman or a mechanic, those are my heroes, because like those are those, even though they're like little things, but they lead to big things, So I guess it really it depends on how you define a crisis and how people define crisis, because it comes in many different forms, and there's so many people out there that I think are just kind of like the unsung heroes, because like, especially like with the pandemic and all of that stuff, we went through a period of time to where people were dropping off food, and the news was coming, and we were doing interviews all the time and wanting to talk about things, and most of us, honestly, we try to stay off the radar. Like, we don't really like news cameras, because we like to work in the background. We don't like to be in the forefront. With my current position, with where I work, that was one of the biggest changes I had, is when the media comes for an interview, it's usually me that has to go do it, which was a pretty big change, because again, I wasn't a go get out in front of people and, oh, here, look at what I do and stuff like that. That was very different, but it's nice to do that, because I get to bring recognition to the people I work with and what they do. And I feel that they're just not recognized nearly as much as what they should be for the work, because most people don't know what we do, because we're hidden behind privacy and laws and stuff like that. So we can't get into details. We don't talk about details, so there's so much that goes on that people don't know.
Are you allowed to share like on the podcast, any of those things, or is it all private?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, there's some things I can share as, it's desensitized, or it could be from many, many, many years ago, or not desensitized, but not identifying anybody or not getting into real specifics in that. But
so what is it? What are the best practices in your job? What are if you were going to train somebody, or if you were going to mentor somebody, what would you say to them? What would you tell them?
So I'd say the foundation of what we do is the human side of what we do. It's being a human first. And so when you go to class, it's like anything else. When you go through the academic training of something, there's the academic, there's the book side, there's the physical, can I get it from my head to my hands to do what I need to be able to do? And so that's only a very small part of it. A big part of it is understanding and what you're doing. And you're not dealing with widgets. You're not dealing with, these, an inanimate object. You're dealing with human beings. You're trying to help fix them or help them in whatever their time of need is. And that ranges anywhere from, they could be bleeding, to where you're putting a bandage on or putting a tourniquet on. It could be where they're not breathing, to where you're breathing for them. Or it could be that, they're having some sort of psychiatric emergency, to where they're having, a crisis or a breakdown, and there's no tool for that. That's something that is, you build that human connection with them, and that's how you're going to help them through that event and get them to what, the care that they need and that they deserve. But I mean, first and foremost, it's very much a people line of work, and understanding that you're dealing with human beings, you're not dealing with robots, is the first thing, is really the foundation of everything we do. The skills, the protocols, the understanding of different medical conditions, the physiology of the body, stuff that all can be taught. But you have to have the right person and the right personality that can interact with people, to do the job.
With your faith in being in that high stress type job, where you're seeing all kinds of just different things, what do you think is the hardest thing to deal with as far as like reconciling it with your faith? Like, what's something, you don't have to get specific, but what's something that is constantly always challenging your faith?
Probably the biggest challenges is sometimes why, the why of what happens, and that's kind of the, we know it's part of the plan, but we don't know how it fits into the plan, because disaster, crisis, all of that stuff, it is part of God's plan. And sometimes it does cause you to take pause and ask questions about that plan. And, sometimes you don't ever get the answers to why that is the way it is. And sometimes that, it's like we talked about earlier, sometimes you see down the road why that is the way it was. And so it's some of the things you just wonder, like, especially when you see like innocent people involved, those are things that try your faith, or really test your faith, because you're like, how could this happen, to somebody who was totally innocent to a situation? It was just, again, wrong place, wrong time. And sometimes, where you'll see situations to where somebody has certainly worked very, very hard to put themselves into a bad position, and they managed to kind of skate away, unscathed, like nothing ever happened. And, so it's a time that can really challenge your faith. Like for me personally, like it never created doubt in my mind, is to, because that's what some people struggle with, or they start to doubt their faith. They start to doubt, God's plan and stuff. If anything, those situations make mine stronger, because it enforces to me that there's something there that I don't understand. And I have to live by faith to just understand that it is what it was. And it's not for my understanding right now. Like, you're blindly taken on faith. So, I mean, there's usually two ways people take that, but those situations actually just make my faith stronger, because it reaffirms that there is that the higher power is there and is in play. I don't understand it, but it's there. So that's probably the best way I could explain that.
No, that's a good way of putting it. Because that, to me, that would be the thing that at least that I hear with people who have difficult jobs such as yours is that they have their belief, and then they go out into a world that seems to be pushing against those beliefs. And a lot of people tend, like, not a lot, but a majority of people I've talked to, their faith folds after they experience or see innocent people getting hurt, killed, so on and so forth. But I'm always curious as to those people like yourself who can continue their faith, and even going as far as to even say, like what you've said, which is it actually helps to grow your faith, and kind of parallels to what I assume we're going to talk about later, which is like when you're in the gym and you're working out, the best way to build muscle is to work out, right? It's the only way that I know of. So when it comes to work's like a muscle, or faith's like a muscle. You have to work at it, and how you work at it is living it out practically in a sinful and fallen world, and doing exactly what you're talking about doing, which is you're looking at the world around you. It doesn't make sense. Things don't seem to be lining up, but you have faith that God has a higher view. God has a higher knowledge of what's going on. And if it comes down to it where you don't know God's reasons, we do, however, know his heart. And that is enough for us to have faith, to know that he's doing what he has a plan throughout all of that. So that's awesome. That's fantastic. I think that's something that a lot of people need to hear.
There's a verse that a lot of people don't know in the book of Deuteronomy. It's in chapter 29, verse 29. And it says, the secret things belong to the Lord, but the things revealed belong to us and our sons forever, that we may obey them. And that always helps me, and it helps other people, because it provides a framework and a context. The thing that you said was the why, and everyone struggles with why. But what's nice about that verse is he's basically saying, hey, there are some things that God plays close to the chest. They're not for you. And so maybe it'll be on the other side of eternity. We don't know that. But it's a nice verse because it gives you framework and a context for the why.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it kind of, and that's, going back to that, like, I hope we do get some of those answers later, because like I think about like the aha moments here on earth, like when you don't know why something is the way it is, or you finally figure something out, and it's like that rush that you get, just that satisfaction at that point, like I hope we get to find that stuff out later, because I think that would be like the ultimate aha moment to understand why things are the way they are, and at that point, obviously we'll be at peace and stuff like, all the good stuff that goes along with that. But that's at least how that's what I'm banking on. I'm hoping for.
Actually, to say one last thing about this is actually one of my favorite lines from any book I've ever read outside of the Bible, I should say, that comes to mind when this subject comes up is from a very famous Russian book. But at the end of the book, the author talks about, he says, I believe like a child that all human suffering will be made up for, that at the world's finale, there will be such a harmony that not only will all of the crimes against humanity, all of the evils in the world and throughout history, not only will all of that make sense as to why it had to happen, but it will be so strong, talking about Jesus, of course, it will be so strong that it will actually, like, we will look at all of the evils of human history and we'll be content with what happened because we know what it led up to, and we wouldn't change anything about it. And I always think about the fact that when we get to heaven and we're in the presence of Jesus, that everything about earth, everything about our lives, we're going to be so content with just Jesus's presence and how all that went to lead us to his feet, that to us will be like, I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have done it any other way.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing to share. That's cool.
So
yeah,
you have, so I did just some research before we did this podcast. And I just, before we go anywhere else, I have to ask. So I see that you studied for a master's of business administration within the healthcare management. And this is what I want to ask you about, is at the American Military University. So first of all, why American Military University? And was it a good school? Would you recommend it?
Yeah, so AMU was a great school. And so it's not, the name is a little misleading. Like, it's not like a branch of the military. It's a school that is called American Military University. And really where their foundation was from was, it was all about asynchronous learning, college, undergraduate and graduate level training with students. So what was really cool is, like, other students I would have in classes, or I should say, it's focused on people like that are kind of public safety in the military because of that asynchronous learning. So you don't have to be all online at the same time. There were a lot of students that I would be in class with that we would be working on things together with. And, they're halfway around the globe. Some are in Germany, some were in Afghanistan, some, they're just deployed all over the place. And it was really cool to get to interact with them in real time, like when they're, on deployment. And I highly recommend the school because there was a lot of quality instructors, because most of my professors were not full-time instructor cadre or professor, doctorate level. A lot of them, had full-time jobs, whether they were, military career or in some public safety field or some business field, and they were teaching part-time. So you weren't just dealing with people who were just academics that were just talking theory. I got to hear directly from people who were in the business of what they were doing, actually carrying out and doing what they do every day, and teaching and passing that wisdom on to us. So I really enjoyed it. I did both my master's and my bachelor's degree through AMU.
Wow. Oh, that's cool. I just was curious because I had never heard of that college. And
where's it located?
They're out of Charlestown, West Virginia, but it's 100% online. It's all online. There's no actual brick and mortar classroom.
Cool. No, I'm looking on the website now, and on their Facebook page, and I can't believe I've never heard of it. But that's awesome.
Yeah, they're starting to rebrand towards what American Public University System. So if you see APUS or AMU, it's the same school.
Okay.
I think that the name American Military University was leading everybody to believe like you had to be like a veteran or you had to be active duty to go to school there, and that really wasn't the case. It was the foundation of their school was to be able to asynchronously go to school and manage to get your degree.
That's cool.
And with my work schedule at the time, and even now, like it wouldn't permit for a regular schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, classroom type setting.
Cool.
So one of the things that people may or may not know about you, we'll switch gears here, is you took your health very seriously the last couple years. There was a change.
About 3.5 years.
Okay.
4 years, I guess, when the whole I started the whole process.
So I'm just going to ask this: do you happen to have a before and after pic there close to you that you can hold up to the screen?
Yeah, actually, I could probably pull it up on my phone real quick.
Okay. Now, as you do that, you said it was about 3.5 years ago you started getting serious about your health.
Yep. There we go. This we'll see if I can get this to.
Okay. All right, hold it there for 1 second.
That's pretty cool. Wow.
Okay, so talk to us about the journey.
So I was my exact weight was in my heaviest 480 pounds. And so imagine, whatever your body weight is now and adding that weight onto your body, like physically in weights, and carrying that around. And it just, everything in everything in my body hurt, not only, like the psychological aspect of it, but struggling to go up like a flight of steps and being winded from that was very challenging. Like if I had to say that there was one physical feat that I absolutely hated, it was steps. Like, as ridiculous as that sounds, steps were just physically difficult to do. And so, I come to that point in my life to where I'm like, I can either accept this for what it is, and it was going to lead to my early demise, or I could do something about it and employ all the tools I have available to me to move forward, and get healthy, and move forward. Because I didn't like that I couldn't physically be active. I couldn't just go for a jog. I couldn't go out in the yard and, play with the dog, or, and my wife and I were talking about having kids, and I would want to be able to go into the yard and, go play ball, or, do whatever, do everything you do with a family. And, to the thought of that, just not being able to do that just scared me to death, just between the health concerns and just not physically able to do things. So I decided to really get serious about it. Before that, there was a couple of other times in my life where I had lost 180 to 100 pounds, and then I'd put the weight back on, and sorry, that's my wife back there, Virginia, and
let's see the dog.
My puppy, Frankie.
Hey, bring the dog back.
Yeah, here, put Frankie up here. Oh yeah, he's
Catter.
Speaking of getting bigger, this guy here has doubled in size just in the last couple of weeks. Here, Frankie.
What do you got?
He's a Labradoodle.
No shedding, huh?
Not one hair. He's got more cat hair on him that he picks up just, shuffling around with them than he does his own hair that falls off.
That's cool.
Nice looking dog.
Yeah, very nice looking dog.
He's a good boy. But I'd lost weight before that. I really struggled with ever keeping it off. And so most people would associate with being a paramedic like a physically demanding job. And the problem is that there are very short moments of physical demand that you have, meaning lifting and carrying. But there is a lot of sedentary side of it. And so, especially when you're on long transports and stuff like that, you're doing a lot of sitting and a lot of waiting. So you're not very physically active. So that really helped. That really contributed to gaining weight. So I want to say it was November 17. I finally put my foot down with myself and said that, I'm making a change. And so I went and seen up here in Erie, they have medically directed weight loss. And so I went and seen a doctor there and got in with a nutritionist. And I did a surgical consult at the time too, and decided that I wanted to do the gastric sleeve. So it was this whole barrage of putting different tools in play. Everybody wants to look at getting healthy and losing weight is there's some silver bullet solution. And it's like fixing a car. You don't use the same wrench to fix everything in the car. Sometimes you have to use your whole toolbox or employ the use of all different sorts of tools to be able to fix something. And so that's what, when you're trying to get healthy and you're trying to lose weight, it's the same thing. And so, I changed my diet. I got into an exercise routine, all these lifestyle and kind of mindset changes. And I lost, it was 80 pounds, the old fashioned way. I had what was called the gastric sleeve procedure, and it's the least invasive procedure and the safest procedure that's kind of out there right now. And then that was, again, so it's another tool, but you go into it with your nutrition, adjusted, with your exercise, your lifestyle change, and that's how I managed to lose weight. And I stuck to he's busy. I stuck to that routine, and I managed to lose 240 pounds. I far exceeded what the physicians and the staff at the office ever thought I would lose. Because the sleeve surgery, most people expect to lose maybe 60 to 100 pounds, depending on, their size and, or, their BMI. But I managed to far exceed that. And, but, the only reason why I exceeded is because of the lifestyle change, the exercise, and just being more physically active and all of the stuff that goes along with that. It was a lifestyle adjustment, but I feel like I have life again. I can go out and go for a run now, and it doesn't feel like I'm going to pass out and die. I mean, sometimes you do, but because running's running. But I really enjoy lifting weights. I like weight training, and that's always coincided with my job very well, because the stronger you are, the less likely you are to get hurt. So and it helps to clear the fog out of your mind too. It's like that's the stress eating and stuff like that, because that's what I was bad at. I would stress eat, and people, you never think of food as like an addiction. When you hear addiction, like you think about alcohol, you think about drugs, smoking and stuff like that. But I mean, food, it can be just as addicting. I mean, and it's just as harmful for you. It's just not ever really looked at like that, So, life's about moderation, and that's a lesson I had to learn the tough way.
So what's some of the practical advice or tips you'd give people on mentally, your actual diet, what you're putting in your mouth, your body, and working out?
So you have to look at it as a lifestyle change. I try not to call it a diet, even though I slip up sometimes, because a diet's always something you quit. You want to look at it as a lifestyle. It's something that you change in your life that you're going to change forever. You want it to stick forever. It's not a temporary basis. It's not something that's just here, for a couple months. You want it to be something that just in everything you do, you're weaving that into your life. It's like when my wife and I even look to go on like vacation or go on trips, we still got Planet Fitness membership. We're looking to see, where's the closest Planet Fitness to where we're staying, or, is there a gym at the hotel sometimes? Things like that, most people don't go pick where they want to stay based off a gym. We have before, and, same thing with food, like planning ahead, food and meal planning is tough sometimes. Because the one thing I struggled with is that right before we moved to Erie, I was commuting to Erie every day from Greenville to work. So, I mean, that was a minimal of 3 hours in my car every day commuting to and from work. And I was always eating out of a bag, and so it was always fast food. It was always going through the Tim Hortons line or the McDonald's line, stuff like that. Looking at your quality of food, that's a big thing. Making sure you're trying.
Well, real quick here, what is give people who are unfamiliar with meal prepping, what do you literally do, like in the week? Do you start Sunday and prep for the week? Like, what do you do?
Yep. Usually I try not to make it too complex, because the more complex you make it, the harder it is to try to stick to it. Some people are real intense to where they'll literally lay out like Tupperware containers and fill the containers for meals for the rest of the week. We do our grocery shopping on Sundays. We pick up what we want for the week. We have an idea of what we're going to eat, what I want to take for lunch. Lunch at work, that's a big thing. It was real easy because, the guys want to go out and, get, go through the drive-through, hit pizza, whatever it might be. But I get some, salads, or just plan on just what I can do for the week and pack my lunch the night before. Because that was the other thing I found that I was horrible at doing was, I'd say, oh, I'll pack my lunch in the morning. Well, I'd wake up late, and guess what I didn't do? So planning a little bit, carving out time the night before just to pack what you bought earlier in the week so you can stick to it, just kind of comes down to a discipline thing, So I've always been a big fan of Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL that, teaches, that, discipline equals freedom. You can be free of anything in your life that's bad if you can discipline yourself to stay away from it. You know, it's a mindset thing. And half of the game is not physically having to carry out the task. It's mentally bringing yourself to do it. It's mentally getting yourself to, you know, make the healthier food decision. It's the mental decision to get up off the couch and, you know, go do something physical, you know. And sometimes physical activity, it's me parking away from the store so that I have to walk extra distance to go into the store. Or before, if I've had like a week where I haven't really been physically active, maybe I'll push mow part of the yard where I would usually ride mow, just for the fact of getting out and just moving. You know, just little things like that that don't have to be hard to do. You don't need special, you know, you don't need anything special to do that. You know, it's just about getting out and moving.
You're adding more steps to your day.
Yep. Instead of taking an elevator, I take steps now. I mean, like that to most people, that would seem so silly. But the fact that when I go to the gym and use the stair machine, I will tell you, that was the machine that I was most intimidated by, because I hated steps that much. Like, because they were so, like, if there was anything that made my knees hurt, my body hurt, it was stairs. And so it was kind of like when I finally got myself to the point where I'm like, I want to conquer this machine, you know, and now I'll go do 133 flights of steps, you know, and one exercise evolution, you know, like that's, you know, that was a win for me. You know, you set the little goals, and like at first, if I survived 10 flights when I did it, you know, that was great. And then I moved to 15 flights, you know, once 10 flights got to be reasonable, you know, and you just set those little goals that are achievable. That's what's key. You know, I never set off in this to shoot for the moon, you know, that's the problem too, is I think everybody, they go set that very difficult goal right up front, and they don't realize it's going to be real slow progress, you know, because that's how it is. Anything worth having is going to be slow, and it's probably going to be painful to get there, but you'll get there, and it's worth it when you do. But you know, just understanding it takes time, and you chip away a little bit at a time. So that's why you just set these little small achievable goals, and you'll get there, you know, just to keep moving it forward.
Yep. And that's ancient wisdom. I mean, that's the turtle and the hare. Hey, run by me one more time. How many stairs you said you did? What was it you did? You did how many flights?
The most I usually go up to 133 when I'm motivated to get up and get moving.
How long does that take you to do that?
Oh, I want to say it's like 45 minutes.
Oh, you're on that beast for 45 minutes?
Oh yeah. Yep. If I can keep going, I'll keep going. And that's usually what it would lead to, is I would go until I just physically couldn't do no more, you know, like until my body. And then even when I said I couldn't do anymore, I'd still do a couple more steps, because that was the other thing I found, is that sometimes I'd push myself to where I thought was my breaking point. And then I would kind of get over that mental hurdle that, no, I'm not really at my breaking point. I'm just trying to get out of doing more work. And then I wouldn't think about it. And then before I know it, I do another 10 flights, or I do another 15 flights.
Would you just,
know, and so
consistent? Was it consistent?
Sorry,
or you, as you're on there for 45 minutes, would you do it faster, slower, or would you keep the pace consistent?
I always started off a little slow, because I find if I started too fast that my body would wear out and I'd get sore quicker. I'd start out slow, I'd speed it up. And then usually about every 12 to 14 minutes, I'd have to slow it down maybe for like 30 seconds or so. But then when I gave myself that little reprieve, like my body was like, okay, we're ready to go again. And I'd crank it back up again.
David, you're the man. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking your time. I believe this is going to bless people because there's so many fascinating parts to this. You know, what's the EMT component, your own personal lifestyle and goals with the health transformation. I think there's a lot of people out there that this could help inspire, because everyone, you know, you see the TV version of things, which is like the Biggest Loser, and it's fake. you know, what they have there for them. So it could discourage people. And in your story is realistic. It's putting in the hard work. It's every day. It's tweaking all these little things in your environment, and you've become successful. So again, I want to thank you for your time, and especially thank you for that story in the beginning. You know, that's a really cool piece of feedback that it really means a lot.
Yeah, you know, I've always told myself I wanted to tell you that story, but I always wanted a creative way of being able to do it. You know, I always thought, just shooting it through a text message or something wasn't the way to do it. And then when you talk to me about doing this, and I'm like, I'm going to drop this bombshell on right there, and then it'll be recorded, and that'll be unique. So, but
do you watch us online?
I do try to pop in and watch some of the podcasts. I watch. I know you interviewed John Libanati a while ago. There, I know John pretty well. I haven't seen him in a while, but his EMS career, I worked for him for a while, and we were friends in that. So
cool.
But
well, best of luck to you. We're going to close off the show now.
Alrighty.
All right. This is Anthony Cloditis, pastor here at Faith Presbyterian Church, hanging out with Seth in the Engage Studio podcast. And we are signing off. David, you've been a fantastic guest. We'll be in touch. God bless, buddy.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
All right. We'll see you.